parameters set by the commission to find alternative sources of funding. We don't have a money tree, I wish we did.
Are these expenses anticipated for 17-18, is that because of this trial mostly?
No,
That's just the basic cost.
yeah. It's gonna have to include this trial, because we don't have anything else at this point. We've got to stand strong and get to the point where people start living within their means.
How would they increase their revenue then?
District court, again, could team with public safety and the county attorney if they chose. There's also, they cut in expenses that could be done. I don't know what other sources of revenue there are because I don't work in district court. But what I would do is contact the association and start asking, what are some of the alternative sources of revenue you guys have? What are your plans for meeting the unfunded mandate from the state? And then what I would do is put together a proposal and come to the commission and say, okay, this is what I've come up with. This is what I can do. Can you guys help with this? But it can't just be put on the commission to just find all the extra money that every single department head wants. We just physically can't do it. So without the 30,000 from the CDs, is that fund balanced?
I'm factoring this report before or after. I believe it is, but she's only got like 5%. But don't hold me to it because that's one little thing I don't remember for sure, if I took that out of this or not before. I'll have to double check.
Okay.
I thought I got it done Monday night. I'll have to
Just
check.
a 2-time explosion in costs from 16 to 17 and then maintaining that. We need a plan. We need that department head to come forward with at least part of that plan.
Yes, I did take it out,
All right, so what's she at, 5%?
5%.
Okay, that's still horrible, but
Yeah.
it's better than 0. This
And
kind of
down the
goes
red.
to, what's that?
Out of the red.
Right? This kind of goes to what we were talking about, Mike, as far as freezing expenses and putting together a savings for next year. It's not gonna happen overnight, it's gonna take us a couple of years, but we are gonna have to implement some kind of a formula that everybody has to follow.
I don't know how she's gonna get, she's only looking at a $6,000 increase. And the next year, everything back here is they're all over 10. One of them's 10, one of them's 15, and then all of a sudden we're gonna go to a 6. I don't know how that's realistic.
What's that? That's 6?
Well, her total expenses, she's going for, in 15, she was at 123.
Yeah,
15 and 16, she's at 133. 16 and 17, she's at 148. And then all of a sudden, you're only gonna have a $6,000 increase. Because you're going from 148 to 154.
So what are you saying?
What I'm saying is 154 is not a realistic number. Cause every other year it's gone up from anywhere from 10 to 15,000, and now you're only gonna go 6, that's a third of what the other two
Is that what
previous years
she
have done.
said she was gonna have?
That is what she submitted, yes.
That's what she submitted,
Yeah,
though.
So she evaluated the numbers, probably looked at what she was given for that revolving fund and incorporated that in to a total. She also found some extra revenue last year, which was part of that revolving fund, as you remember. So that could be what she was taking into account.
Or maybe she found some ways to reduce some of her expenses. I mean, who knows? Just because it was that way last year doesn't mean it has to be at least that plus. I mean, there might have been something she found where she could save some money on some things, you know. You don't know. You have to ask her and see. There's normally always some way you can find some savings in things.
So her total expenses, if you look at the percentages, it kind of puts it into perspective. Total expenses, she increased from 14 to 15 by 18.6%. From 15 to 16 by 8.4%. 16 to 17 by 11.2%. And this year, she's tightened her belt and said, okay, I can do it for 3.9%. I agree with Michelle, she probably found some savings, there's efficiencies to be found in this department. It could be that that's what she found. She also found that additional revenue, and there was a finding from the auditors also that might be playing into
influence
this.
that.
Right. Again, these are the numbers she submitted, they have not been altered by Debbie, by anybody.
Okay,
So I agree with Michelle, we have to trust her on her expenses. If it's not matching her revenue, that's where we step in and say, hey, there's a problem here. You either need to cut expenses or you need to increase revenue. Right now, looks like she's looking and working on cutting expenses. She's, revenue, looks like it went down a bit, I'm not sure. I think that's probably something that,
Probably reduction in fees for this year that she's not gonna get reimbursed for.
that's state share.
Mm-hmm.
That's the state share right there. So a decrease of $275 from last year is what she's expecting in the state, not paying for that part.
okay.
That's not a huge amount. We'll see what happens as time goes on. But what she has done in preparation of this, in my opinion, is she decreased expenses somewhere.
And
But-
if you take this 30 out of here, then we're even lower than we were on revenue last year. We only
No,
did 118.
already did.
So that's what I'm
This-
saying, if you take that out of there, you're at 118, and last year she was 119.
Right, it's $275 difference.
Off of the difference on
Right.
that.
That's what I was just saying is, she took into account probably the state's not
Not
paying
paying
those
for
witness
anything.
fees. So she decreased her revenue a difference of $275. But she also looked at her expenses and didn't grow as much as previous years. She only grew by 3.9%. So what exactly those were, where she found the efficiencies or the savings, I don't know. But it looks like looks to me like she's decreased some of her expected operations. Personnel is still 5%, so it looks like maybe some hours got increased for somebody here. But that is substantially higher than the COLA. So this will be a fund we have to watch.
Yeah.
This will be a fund where I would hope that we'll have a proposal coming to us, because this is not something that just us should be seeing and aware of. And I think if she, like every other department head, watches their spending is aggressive on looking at revenues, aggressive on collecting those fees, other than the ones the state won't pay, then I think we could be okay. And this is something we need to do anyway, because we didn't get the mills that we expected this year due to the change in formula. But we still grew. We grew by 3.9%. There you go, right there.
Yeah,
So
but that's better than
3.9.
11.2.
Right. Now, we did not grow by 11.2 last year. This was above the amount of our
Yeah.
growth in our mills. So was this, so was this. That's what's causing much of the problem, is growth has exceeded revenue
Yeah.
for a couple of years. Now we need to get strict and tighten budgets. Did you guys get graphs? Did you want any? Dave, do you want one?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I'm glad she's at 5%. That makes me feel better than what we were looking at.
Wow.
Is that the entitlement maybe that brought her up?
Well, yeah, that probably is that once I got that sorted through and added to, yeah.
I think that's what helped hers is the entitlement share.
Mhm.
That was increased, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the original didn't have the entitlement
In the
because we
cash
didn't have
balance,
it.
because it was just sitting in
It
the
was just
clearing
sitting
fund.
there.
Oh, okay, I hear ya. Yeah. All right. So her, revenue, is it higher than the 118 because of that entitlement share this year? That's, that's okay.
What's her non-tax revenue is like 65,000. It added to her cash, so that put up, no, it's her cash, sorry. 16, now that took her cash from 15. What took her cash, it actually increased her cash, but it was only like $5,000. So, it wasn't much, but it helped, so her cash is at almost 16,000.
Okay, and her overall revenue for next year, what is that at with the entitlement share then? I don't know if this included the entitlement share. And if you don't have it, that's okay.
Where's my revenue?
So that 118, Mike, 118,872 probably doesn't include the last payment of entitlement share, which is about another
Oh, okay.
35 or 65?
I don't know what she gets. I think it was
Oh, total for the years, this year will be 23,087.
087.
Went
Okay.
up a little bit.
All right, so 118,872 plus 23,087 would be 141,959. So that'll really help.
So that will help her.
And that's an increase in revenue of a substantial percentage. $19.2 is what she'll increase in revenue this year. Well, that's good. That makes me feel better.
The 58 was the fourth quarter.
58, okay.
53 was the fourth quarter payment that wasn't showing. That helped.
All
Kind of
right.
like when I was working on reducing the mill, depending on cash base, depending on how many mills to reduce those overall floating mills to keep them at the 14%.
Right.
It was very interesting seeing, you should think the same amount from everybody, but it didn't work that way, depending on what they had in their cash balance. Depending on the resources they need and how much to cut them by the 14% with the mills.
Sure.
Some could do more and some could do less. It was really interesting watching that, playing with that.
Yeah,
That's the fun part.
so, one of the things we talked about too was, like the ambulance building, having a fee for people to use it to help pay for the heat, the electricity, the cleaning. Also, rent for the modular next door. And then I think what we need to do is task our department heads who have fees attached to them. Doug just did this, but we should be looking at addressing those fees so that it's covering the time a person takes to do whatever that task is. We talked about Nicole. There's other departments that have fees attached, sanitation. I think we just increased those with the new regulations, but we should see about that. But where there are fees for services, we need to evaluate those and make sure that they're covering what they need to. Taxpayers should not be paying the difference for an individual's specific or special request. And then after the budget, Debbie, if you could maybe, if it's good with the commission, work with our department heads on that and just make sure that anybody who has fees are adequately setting those. And then maybe ask Allison and Tammy to come up with a rental charge for the ambulance meeting room. I know that's still the district's building, but as we are the ones managing it, it seems to me we can set that price.
When we wanted to use that room, when the hospital was in charge, I thought we wanted to use that room, the county had to pay a fee until we moved extension over there. I was thinking like $50 fee to help with the cleanup, or wasn't very much.
Oh,
Do you remember?
I don't remember ever paying for the ambulance building. I do remember we had set a fee schedule for the building project meeting room of $50
That's
a
what I'm
use.
thinking.
And the school has a
Their room.
rental fee.
Yeah, and I know they do that.
Yeah.
I think that's why people don't use it.
Well, I mean, we're having a meeting there tomorrow night, and those folks paid for it.
You know, the 4-H building charges rent to use their building for fairs and weddings and things like that, so it makes sense.
It does, yeah,
You want it for free, go down to the campground.
right. Now, if it's a county department, you know, I think we look at that,
We don't charge to use this room
right? Right.
when you're not in session.
And we should be for a non-county department for sure, and we could have 2 fee schedules just so that there's a shared cost. The ambulance building is mostly too because of the heating costs. This building, it really doesn't go down too much at night, I wouldn't think.
I think it's pretty stable in here.
Are you guys good with that idea?
Yeah.
Okay with me.
All right. And then the other thing is, getting a resolution on the modular next door. We brought this, Corey brought a piece of it, we asked him to do some research. This was February or March. I'd like resolution on this ASAP for the budget. So are you guys good with maybe an email to Corey with a 1:30 meeting, first Monday in September, with a resolution on that?
Yeah.
All right, Debbie, would you please send an email?
First Monday in September is Labor Day.
First Tuesday in September?
Just saying.
All right, thanks, Ann. Yeah, probably won't get a lot of response. Debbie, would you send an email and follow up on that? And we can help draft it if you like.
Do you want a resolution or,
I'm sorry, not a resolution, an answer.
okay,
Right,
two different ways to use
Right.
resolutions, I want to make sure.
absolutely.
Okay,
And then, the trick is going to be those departments who have not increased their efficiencies. For you guys, it's 2 monitors. I think that will increase your efficiencies greatly. Any other department that has the ability to increase their efficiencies are gonna wanna do that before. You know, I would think first, make your cut second, but if you can find a way to be more efficient with your time and your work, it's a no-brainer. That might just be a friendly reminder from the commission. Did I miss anything, Mike? Debbie?
so you want Corey to meet with you
Yes.
at 1:30?
Yes. And to have an answer on, the building
Okay.
rent. You know, I might also ask if it's okay with you guys that we also have a answer on the BLM money, because that's gonna affect the general fund. The, Longhorn issue. And there's one more, I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. I have to look at my notes. But we need some answers.
And with the BLM, it needs to be, because you just said that, well, I talked to him and he said he paid it. Well, what we need then is, he needs to prove that he did. We need a council check. If Montana Internet says they paid it, then we need proof from them that they did pay it. So then we can find where it wasn't applied or where it went. You know, we just can't have, oh, I paid it. You know,
We've
that's not
looked.
enough. We need to, if he says he paid it, then he needs to provide proof that he paid it.
Because did the bank put it in the wrong account? Did they even send it to the wrong place? Did Forest Service get it? And nobody's caught it or figured it out? I mean,
And that should be on him to, if he's saying he paid it, that should be on him to provide proof that he did pay it.
Okay. Yeah, if you could include that in your request for us, that'd be great.
And the Longhorn, I don't know enough about that. If I just say in the Longhorn issue, he'll know.
Longhorn access.
Right.
Longhorn access.
Yes, he will know.
Okay.
I sent him an email on that just a couple days ago.
Oh,
so
okay, okay.
It's been languishing since also
Okay.
March.
I know we've been working on the BLM one for a while, trying to,
Yeah, those are the 2 important ones because they affect the budget. And it might just need an amendment later. I don't think it should hold up the budget at this point.
but we can get at least balance, any rent, money, whatever it comes in, just improves our odds.
Right.
And could be added as an amendment, which helps with spending authority later,
Yeah,
should the need arise.
yeah. All right, the only other thing that I wanted to bring forward, and Michelle, you and I talked about this a little bit, is the claims process. So Mike Franklin already has a copy of these, but what these are is the claims approval process. Basically, any claims that are turned in, there's a process to follow, and this has been shared with all department heads, it was approved by the commission. And it is for the most part being followed by the commission. And Michelle, I'm just gonna pass it to you if you don't mind to kind of share what some of the the struggles have been, so we can get those addressed and resolved.
Well, I think some of the frustrations that some departments have, they said that the bills aren't being paid timely. So sometimes they get late charges or finance charges, and they get calls from vendors saying, why hasn't this bill been paid? I think of course there was, you know, you have end of fiscal year, beginning of next, there was a little bit of a crunch there, so there was some that were late simply because of the volume, and then some things had to be, we had to figure out budget-wise before they could be approved, so there was a few that were late there because of that. So I think if you take those ones and take them out and look at the other ones, I think the biggest problem is that people aren't turning in their claims as quickly as they should be. And if they get an invoice, you know, first week of August and they don't turn it in until the 20th of August, then that just delays the whole process from being completed, because it takes about 2 weeks from the time a claim is turned in, a minimum of 2 weeks from the time the claim is turned in, for it to go through, there, get the approval from the commissioners, then for me to go through and then to get it printed and everything else. Sometimes it takes less, just how everything, you know, ends up happening, but a lot of times 2 weeks is about it. I mean, you can't expect anything sooner than that. So if they're needing something paid by the end of the month, they get the bill at the beginning of the month, but they don't turn it in till the middle of the month. It's getting pretty close and almost impossible for it to get done on that amount of time. Plus, I mean, I have no control over when you guys sign claims. You know, so if they happen to turn in a claim kind of after you guys have been in and signed claims for a while, then it has to wait till you guys come in and sign claims again, or if you don't have a meeting, or, you know what I mean? So there's just a lot of things, so I have to have the 2 signatures. I can't do anything until I have the 2 signatures. I mean, the only thing I think I would ask of you guys is that every time you guys come into the courthouse, if you could come and see if there's claims that need to be signed. You know, just a few minutes a lot of times is all it takes and stuff, because then that just keeps everything moving. But, because if I have them done, then, like I said, to do it first and third week, that's that's what's been the process, and that's the way it's supposed to go. But if I have them signed and everything ready, and I have time, I will do them more often. So, you know, if I have them done and ready, then I will do them. But if I happen to have time and I don't have any claims that are signed, then I can't do anything. So I think that there's things that, you know, departments can do, getting in their claims sooner rather than later. There really shouldn't be much reason at all for claims to be turned in a week or 10 days or 2 weeks after they're received. There's really not really any reason for that. It doesn't take that long to fill out a claim. You know, they should have things saved on their computer. You know, I do. Anybody wants to see how I do it to make it more efficient for me, I'll be willing to show them how I do it, because I fill out a lot of claims too. So, and it doesn't really take that much time. So, and if they have questions about it, just turn it in and I can, you know, look at it. And they need to make sure that they have, if it's a vendor that they've never used before, they need to make sure that they get a W-9 for it. Because I don't know that a W-9 is needed until after it's been approved by you, and I see it, and I go to enter it, and they're not in there. So that means it gets pulled out, and that just slows down, again, the whole process. So they should know who they've used before. If they've never used them before, then they need to turn in a W-9 with that claim. You know, and some departments are getting better about that, but like I said, that just holds everything up. So, and if they need a check for something, need it by a certain date, then it's especially important that they get a claim in on time, and they need to be communicating with me. I just turned in a claim, I really need it by this date, that's where they should probably be getting a hold of the commission to say, especially if it's like within a week's time they need it. Can you please go sign that claim? I turned it in, we really need the check, and only use that when it's actually really important, not just for everything. You know, there's probably only a few instances where that is necessary at all. But I mean, if that does come up, then that's something that they need to be communicating with the commission and me, so we're all working together to get it done. You know, instead of just turning it in and expecting it to be done by a certain time and not telling anybody anything, and then getting upset when it doesn't happen. We have to communicate, because if it's just in there and it says, let me know when it's done, that doesn't tell me anything. That means let me know when it's done, and which I do. But that doesn't mean I need it by a certain day. That doesn't help. So I mean, there's things, and I mean, we can see, at least with the stamp now, we can see, and most of the time, I mean, I know that you and Mike date it when you approve it. So we can see, okay, when an invoice was, when it was turned in, when you signed it, and then shows in the system when I entered it and when the check was printed. So we can see how long everything takes. So if there's any question as to what happened with something, I mean, I can look and see what to try to help people figure out what the issue was. All they have to do is let me know. And if they have anything, problems or concerns or questions about claims, I would just ask that they would talk to me or include me on things instead of, having a meeting with the commissioner about claims, and I don't even know that it's taking place. Because I think and that's fine if they want to talk about it, that's fine. But I think I could have offered a lot of information that would have been helpful to have for that meeting, that would have made it more productive if I would have been included. So like I said, I'll always answer questions. I've never not. If anybody ever shoot me an email, call me, whatever, I'll look at something up and answer anything they need to know.
Always tried in that department to work with people. And sometimes we've even gone and done an extra check if it were possible, just because. So it's not that we don't work with people, they just need to communicate with us, or we only can do so much.
And they can't, all departments can't expect me to drop everything for them too. I have a lot of things that I need to do, and they can't expect me to go, oh, that's the only thing I need to worry about, and that's the most important thing. Because it's not. Most of the time, it's not.
Well, and it's not as easy to write a county check as it is your own check. It takes, 2 minutes to write it out, whip the check, put it out, write it, put it away, go. It's not that easy with the county checks. There's processes, and it does take time, and I sometimes think we forget that. And then we get impatient, and we get the brunt. And we can't do what we don't know what we need to do.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of claims. I mean, there is a ton of claims, so.
Yeah.
And I
Fills
just,
a whole file cabinet, so that's a lot of paper.
I don't think that, that there's an appreciation of just how many claims that there is and how long it takes to put them in there.
Good example, she got the checks for the fair. There was 88 individual claims to enter for their fair money. That takes a lot of time. Took her most of the day to put those in. That's just one claim with all those checks. You double that in a week and it's too much. Look, Eric didn't realize when we told him kind of how the process worked, that how many times that was cut. He was astounded at how much work goes into getting those checks to those entries. He didn't realize it was that much. Some people don't always know how much time's involved.
Yeah.
So it's more complicated than we like to think.
Yeah. One of the things I'd like to do is get our department head meetings going again. And maybe at those meetings, have some discussions about some of these processes. How's claims work? What is the full process, start to finish? So that every department has an understanding of all the steps. Another one is budgeting. You know, what is the budget? How is it made up? Where does the money come from? Why can't we just give everybody what they want? And I talked to Commissioner Mike McGinley. He's gonna come and do kind of a budget 101
Oh,
for us here in
okay.
about a month and a half.
Hmm.
So,
The more insight, the better from other sources.
right, yeah,
Because we all don't think the same. So while it might be, I get it, somebody else might not get the way I get it.
yeah,
So hearing him,
Well, and he speaks more in layman's terms anyway,
yeah.
you know, as from a commissioner standpoint.
Right.
You know, not from an accounting standpoint.
right,
So he's, you know,
yeah,
I think he's
Explain in terms
more
you guys would
relatable
get.
to
Or I tell
other
you numbers,
people
yeah.
as understandable.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because it does help.
Yeah, the more people understand and know, I think the more they're empowered to do what needs to be done. I think some of the comments, and I made this comment yesterday, and some of the comments of just use CDs made me really nervous. It was a good idea, unfortunately it doesn't work, but what made me terrified is when we had so many people saying, just use CDs, like it's nothing.
And I
That's a
think
big
it
deal.
goes to kind of like we did at first, thought it's a separate revenue source. And not until Harold come in did we start thinking and start realizing it's not, and having it explained helped us.
Right,
And I think that's what everybody else needs to understand, that that's our money, it's just that you can only have so much in the bank, so some of it set aside where it'll make money. It's just all part of there, and it comprises of all the funds that comes from the school, city, like Doug said, city, general fund, public safety, all goes together. And when the bank is out, all of us are out.
right,
So to cover those checks, that's when then Doug would have to go swap a CD to cover those expenses. Whether they're checks, like when Michelle does checks, if he doesn't have enough money, that's why we have to tell him, so he makes sure there's money in the account to cover them. I don't think we realize that concept. We see a CD and we think, oh, it's money. Because you and I, that's what we do. We go put money in a CD, it's savings. But at the same time, it is our cash, and it just adds to our account. It's kind of the same concept, but it's not as simple as adding revenue, unless you didn't count it as revenue. You know, I've got some savings bonds that I got when Nathan was born. I don't count that as my cash, my revenue, because it's got to have them 20-some years before they mature to get anything. So,
But you can't do that in a county budget.
no, no.
You have to account for
You have to
every
count for
single
everything.
cent, yes.
And I think we try to make it simple, too simple like that, and thinking, okay, if it was me, this is how it works. And until you hear somebody say no, and I think that would be helpful for all of us to know.
yeah,
And maybe that would quit that, let's use money.
Well, and I think the other thing is if they just say, well, use CDs, then that decreases the, I guess, the incentive to keep things under control. If you always think that, well, if I go over, we have this as a backup.
they'll just bail me out.
Right, and
Yeah.
if that's not an option, it's not an option, and that's something that they need to know. And it needs to be made abundantly clear that, well, it's not an option, this is what we have no extra. Because I think that's what was the idea. Well,
Yeah.
if I needed this, I can just go over my budget and they'll just have to cash out a CD. So it didn't cause any restraint on their part,
Right,
you know, and that's what's needed from everybody is restraint
yeah,
on what they spend and how they prioritize their spending, and they can't, if you view that you have this money, you're not going to be really super careful, you know, I mean, you're just not.
right. Yeah. So any questions?
Hmm.
All right. So the last question I have is a request of you guys to put together with us some kind of a process. So next budget year, we have to do a couple of things. One is let every department know what their set aside is for cash. You, Department A, your total budget is $100,000. You need to put aside $10,000 for your cash next year. So you cannot spend $10,000 of your budget this year. And then what I'd like to do is also have it broken down, ideally by month, how much a department head really can spend of their budget. If they foresee that in December, they have something coming up and they're gonna need to spend an extra $5,000, then they should be looking at October and November and cutting back a little so that they have that $5,000 in December. Every department head should be able to do this because we have a bunch of experts in their own fields. So is that something that is something you can help set up, Debbie? And inform our department heads that that's something we're gonna be doing? And also let us know where we're at on the budget. I think we should be doing a budget review, not quarterly, but monthly. And then also, what would be the kickers or the breaks that would say, okay, at this point, you need to speak to Department A because they're getting dangerously close to overspending. Some of our departments did great this year, but some of our departments went on kind of a spending spree at the end of the year and spent their cash. And that's one of the reasons we're having such a difficult year, is there seem to be no self-imposed parameters. I shouldn't say none. Several departments had no self-imposed parameters, and they spent very liberally. So, any thoughts?
Well, I think one thing that would help them is, and we can put this in the agenda book, is go through, okay, we wanna hear from all these departments and pre-schedule them in the agenda book for the whole year so that they know that the first Thursday or the first Monday, second Monday, it's always my turn, unless there's a holiday, and then you just look forward to the next working day. So then it's there, you guys are aware of it, they're aware of it, and I think with them having access to the reports, then they can come in, okay, when you come in, we wanna hear an update on your account, where are you spending? And it puts more on them, and they're coming in.
And I think it needs to be all departments.
Yeah, it should
Two or
just be,
three
there's
will
only
come
a
in, and
few
some of
that
them
have
have
monthly
never come.
updates.
Yeah,
It should be
every department,
every
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
department.
every department that you want coming in. You know, I know like museum and some of those it's a little harder, but some of those maybe it just needs to fall on more internal a little bit, especially if we know they don't have an issue. But, you know, we were doing that with road, solid waste.
Extension.
Extension.
And public safety were the main four that were on
Right.
the
And-
agenda.
The weed mosquito hasn't been coming in.
But
planning
not the
hasn't been
other,
coming in,
but there's a lot of
sanitary.
departments that were never on
Yeah.
that
Mm-mm.
type of rotation, and it should be, every department should have to come.
I agree.
But I think it
Because that
would
gives you
help
more
them.
information as to what's going on, it makes them maybe think about, you know, sometimes if, especially if they're not coming before you, there's probably a lot of stuff that they're just, you know, kinda maybe not dealing with or putting out of their mind or something. But if they know they have to come before you every month, it might make them keep a little bit more on top of things, you know, too. And then
Yeah.
it helps keep you more informed, and it just, you know,
But
there's less
then-
chance for surprises.
Well, it makes
Like
them
this year.
consciously, I think it makes them consciously, okay, I gotta go see the commissioners, I need to look at my budget and purposefully go and get their reports and look at their spending. Because then you go, oh, I didn't realize I spent that much, oh, I'm getting close, oh, you know, it kind of brings things, just kind of like what, unfortunately this year, with everything going on, till I was working on budget amendments, did I see things that went, oh, and you find things that you need to handle, take care of, where if individually you're looking at your own budgets that way, you can yourself see the trends and what's going on and know where you're setting. And then it's not a burden on any one person, but we're all working together and coming together to work through it. I think it would help. I mean, you know, I'm sure there's some that aren't gonna like it, but with the caveat that they can't be there, they're on vacation, they know that the next meeting, they have to go. And if it means it's 2 weeks in a row, then so be it. Then they know it's there, they don't get off. and it makes them look at it. And has them come down here. Well, you're all here, not one-on-one, so then they all know, you can share your thoughts, your ideas. That's one way I think it would help. I can do some of this for the fine tuning stuff and come up with a formula or something that's, you get too much, okay, you need to come in, but then that way too, you can address it with them when they come in.
Right. So you are saying that you could put together what the formula looks like, we can implement as a commission.
Right. We can say, okay, this is how, what they're, you take out that 10% that they're supposed to have as their reserves. This is where they should be percentage-wise, or this is how much their spending should be at these points in time, like monthly. That way, you know, maybe we could give you, you know, a breakdown of, these are the people who are going to be at this commission meeting, this is where they should be right now. You know, and if they're not, then maybe that's something they need to explain
Yeah.
as to why, you know.
And even if you guys put together, whatever's easiest for you, I would think, an annual formula, we can go ahead and keep that. We can pull the reports for that particular department right before seeing them, do our comparisons prior to the meeting and know where we're at, so we can have a meaningful discussion.
Well, and like I had said before, when we were talking about the reserves, and then as we get into next year, you know, especially into maybe February, March, depending on where people are in their budget, I think that's something that's gonna take you having that to look at when you are looking at claims to sign them. You know, that's something that you need to have before you sign claims as opposed to after you sign claims, or, you know.
I agree, that's another thing that hit us is, this year with that spending, we need to have a more solid understanding of who's getting close and not be signing claims that are over budget. I know that there was some issues this year with some of the department heads being upset by that, but the thing is they shouldn't have been submitting claims over budget. And we are under absolutely no obligation to sign those if they're over budget. And that is the MCA that we read the other day, 764005. A department head official that overspends their budget is personally liable. That's gonna have to start being something that we are aware of and are gonna hold people to. And again, we have some good budgeters. We have some that need a little help, and this can be a friendly assist. Doesn't have to be a hammer, could just be a hand up or a hand out. Whatever
It's
that term is.
communication. How many companies have boards and they have their board meetings? And those are the very things that they look at. This department's out of control. How do they know that? They've got reports.
Right.
They're taking the time to do that. It doesn't take a lot of time once you get going and know what you're doing, but it is something I think is important, because then when you see things, whoa, like you said, sometimes that light bulb doesn't hit until you see all the numbers and you go, whoa, because one-on-one, individually you think no big deal, but then it comes to the end of the month and, oh, I didn't realize I spent that much, I better back off.
Yeah, and to have that all through the year rather than just in June or
Right.
just in May, because then it's too late.
Well, and I
that's-
think if they know that you're going to be really looking at the claims and keeping track of where they are in their budget and everything else, it might make them think a little bit before they make that purchase, you know, put a little
Yeah.
bit more thought into it. So maybe, okay, is this something that I really need? Do I need to spend this much on it? You know, something like that. So it might help to make better decisions
Right,
Or
in
is it-
front of it.
Can I get it somewhere else for less?
You know,
yeah,
To put a little time
because if
into
they know that
research.
they're gonna be questioned or, you know, have to kind of justify some of that stuff, then, you know, it might help them to, in the front, to put more thought and make a better decision.
Well, and it kind of goes along with the lines, if it's a certain dollar amount too, I think it will help with that idea, you wanna know about it, because you're seeing it month by month. Or they're coming in saying, I'm gonna go buy this, you know, I know Scott comes down a lot, and says, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I need to do this, so you're aware of his major purchases.
So all of a
But I
sudden
don't
you don't
think
see a
every-
claim for 20,000 and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? You know?
Where did this come from?
If you knew of it beforehand, then it's not such a surprise and you're not wondering what in the world is going on.
And I think it's unfair, Mike, you've been in the office a lot. I think it's unfair of a department head to have that kind of a situation and to come into the office and only find one of us. One of us says, yeah, I can see the need for that. This person goes off to do whatever they need to do, and the whole commission didn't know about it, and then they're put in a difficult position. So I think that those monthly meetings can be really good at better communication between them and us. And also the other thing is HR. If we can be more proactive with HR, it's gonna lighten your load tremendously. We're going to be proactive, so we catch things before they're blow-ups, like we had last year. And then, hopefully that increased communication can also empower some of our department heads to also be more proactive and on the front end of HR issues.
Well, and then you're not surprised by something that comes over, oh, guess what, we had to fire somebody today. I didn't know there was a problem. They're
Right.
trying to come in saying, we're seeing an issue building, don't have to name names, but just so you're aware of it. And when it happens, it's not like, oh,
Right.
then at that point, make sure you've talked with Michelle Pugari. Have you come down and talk with us, got forms are necessary if it's a work comp or, because that's where we keep all the paper. Forms, you know, it's just working together.
Yeah.
We've all taken a vow of confidentiality and privacy, so that shouldn't be an issue unless we're violating that. We don't go out and gossip and spread rumors, but we're all not dumb, so sometimes we put two and two together. But, I mean, we just gotta work together.
Yeah.
And then it's not your fault or my fault. We're all in it together. I think it would help. This year's been helpful for me. I don't feel like
Yeah.
I'm carrying all the stress of this myself because we're all working in it together. And that's been great. But it took a while to get there. So there are benefits to it. Because you all have each knowledge that's valuable to what we all do.
You guys good with the plan?
Yeah.
All right. I just have one more motion then. I would like to move that we are going to, and I wanted to do this earlier, but I want to move that the commission is committed to restoring those secondary floating departments. And what I mean by my motion, Mike, is, again, fair extension, search and rescue. Their expenditures were not hit this year. If you look in the expenditure line, they're all solid for what they needed. What was reduced were their mills, not their mills so that their cash reserves were reduced, and we took those and put them in general fund specifically for this trial. That's really what has funded that 100,000, not all of it, but a chunk of it. Next year, when that is done, we have to restore those departments, or else we are not gonna have the money for fair extension, search and rescue, to even have the basics to operate. What we did is we just got rid of their savings account. Next year, we're gonna have to give them full mills so that
To
they can
replace
go
them.
ahead and, yeah. So that's my motion.
I'd second that motion.
Moved and seconded, the motion as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Kind of like that one year you guys took Pilt, the Heidecker.
Right.
You guys took Pilt and made each of those so they got the same amount of revenue that they lost in the valuation of the mills
Yeah.
concept. You just gave me a thought. Market adjustments that we were on hold for, a couple of them, until we knew how things were gonna go. Mine and Dana's. And now his is still kind of levy, but we can always do an amendment depending on how the union agreement goes. He had asked for 55 cents. I was looking at 63 to put him at median.
You were looking at 63 for him?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is 13 cents more than he asked for. But it would at least keep him above where the guys are now, but it probably will need to change when the bargaining agreement is settled. Because if we go with, even with TJ just getting 2.5 versus the 3 that he asked for, he's still gonna make more than Dana. And that's, I have a lot of issues with the foreman making more than the supervisor. So that's one that we need to, you know, I know we're talking about no, but being devil's advocate, any compromise like that, that's something we need to keep in mind.
Yeah,
When we give wages for them, if we even give them 20 cents, we just need to keep that in mind, that we might have to adjust Dana's to reflect with wherever TJ is sitting at.
yeah, yeah,
I know he says he's quitting, but that doesn't, the new person coming in shouldn't be making less than the foreman either.
well, you don't, the market adjustments are not for the individual, they're
No.
for the position.
Right.
So what is the position description, is that, you know, does that warrant the
Yeah.
increase? Foreman, or department head supervisor,
Yeah.
yeah, should certainly
So
be
he
higher.
was asking, and 63 cents put him at median, so if you're gonna go there doing median, you're still not gonna keep up with what the bargaining agreement wants.
Right,
Unless there's a huge no, you only get 5 cents. Then it wouldn't be an issue, but even still,
yeah,
I just don't think that's fair to the supervisor when they've got all that responsibility. And when Dana goes, if TJ takes over the position, then of course you can renegotiate all that, I guess, with the foreman, but I think there's a certain standard when you get your bargaining agreements that's expected to uphold.
right. And you wanted a market adjustment as well. What
Mhm.
was your request again? Dollar
Median.
amount? Which was how much? What's the request? What's the increase?
$24.50, I think.
It puts it to 24.50, which is like $1.06. Oh. So yeah, it's like $1.69, I think. Dollar something.
With where we're at on the budget, I would like to table these, and I apologize for this, because I think bringing people to median has gotta be our goal, because we are so underpaid as compared to other counties, but I think with where the budget's at, with us having to kinda halt spending, with us not having the bargaining agreement done yet, I think what I would like to do is just put a hold on these market adjustments. I'd like to prioritize these two and readdress them at the end of the calendar year and,
All
see where
market
we're at.
adjustments
Just those two,
to start to.
yeah. Because every year doing some is gonna be important to keeping us in line, to keeping us competitive. I'd like to make these two the priority that we address and maybe do that in early December so that we have an idea of where we're at, how we're doing, what the trial is looking like, how the formula is shaken out, that kind of thing. What do you guys
I'd
think?
agree to consider that.
All right. Emotionally, I'd like to just say yes to both, and I apologize for that. Structurally, numerically, I think we have to just kind of give it a couple months. Right, any other issues, budgetary solutions that we have to work through?
Do we know what time Bob's coming next Tuesday?
1 o'clock.